the Emax Hawk Sport and the Emax Hawk Pro. So before we get into this review, obviously I need to point out what's going on here. I was flying this thing and had a little bit of a mishap. As you can see, I smashed in the front end with the canopy and the camera, but I will go more into detail in that later. Let's just get right to the flight footage. So the footage you see now is from the Pro version of the Hawk, which is very, very similar to the Sport. Pretty much the only difference is in the motors. So if we take a look at the motor here, this is their brand new Pulsar. It is a 2306 1700 kV. If I can get the camera to focus, it's pretty small text. Hopefully you can see that there. Now the special thing about these motors, if you're familiar with the Tiny's LEDs race lights, from Tiny's LEDs and White Noise FPV, it's basically a little LED that is in line with the motor signal. And when the motor draws power and spins faster, the LED grows brighter. And this is the same exact idea. You can't really see it, but there is a little board under here, and this ring helps diffuse the light. So when you spin the motors faster, say you punch the throttle, these little rings will light up red. It is a white LED, and these are diffusers, so they also do give you some blue and white rings if you want to change the colors. And it's very simple. You just have to take off the motor and change the ring. It'll slide right out. So the footage you've been seeing is on the Emax Scimitar. This is the 5x3 pitch prop, and now this is my favorite of their line. It does come with a 2.6 and the 3 pitch, so a slower and a faster prop. However, I prefer the faster prop, obviously, because it has more power, as well as it is just so much more durable, the 3.0 pitch version. It's still not fantastic durability, but it is by far the most durable prop that it comes with in the box. Now, the props that you see I have on it now are actually a Gemfan Hurricane 5149.9, and the main reason I switched to these is they are just a little bit stronger and more durable, but mostly because these are my main racing prop, and I was very, very familiar with them. I've been flying them for a long time, so I wanted it to be sort of an even playing ground, and I definitely did like how it flew better when I swapped to these. So this flight footage here is just from a couple weekends ago, just trying to get a feel for it here. The camera, I'm not the biggest fan of. I'll show you on the Sport one because the Pro one's smashed, but it's the little Caddx EOS camera with the Emax branding. I'm not a huge fan. It's okay. Obviously, in these models, it is a little bit cheaper, but if you were fleeting out and you did prefer a different camera, it would be very easy to just swap them out for the camera that you prefer, so it's not a huge downside, especially for the price. Now, one thing to note about the camera, it does come in PAL 16.9, I believe, so I actually switched it to NTSC 4x3, which is my preferred output, so that links up to my Clearview a lot better, and it gives better frame rate. The antenna it comes with is the little new Emax Nano guy here. You can see the one I have on here is kind of beat up. It's an extremely small antenna, and it just screws right onto the back right here. So this is included in the box, which is quite nice. So for the crash on the Pro version, I'm going to show that right here. As you can see, I pretty much lined it up exactly perfectly with a easy up metal tent pole. So I don't really fault the quad. I really slammed it in there, and I've done similar things to my quads. The only bad thing is that I did break the canopy. If you see on the Sport version, you can see this part's all filled in here, gives some camera protection, although on mine I just completely blew the whole thing out, as well as shattered the camera, as well as I think I also broke the flight controller. I might have smashed the camera into it when it got hit backwards, because this one is now unresponsive, so that is quite unfortunate. However, that was an extremely difficult crash. And they do give you a spare molded canopy in the box, but I'm not a huge fan of the canopy because it is going to break on things like this, especially when it's colder. Plastic tends to get more brittle. So it definitely looks very cool, but it's not my favorite idea. However, you definitely could make some kind of TPU pod or a carbon pod, since it is just typical standoffs. You could make something up. It's not a huge problem, but I think it is a little bit of a downside to have this canopy, but it is nice to give you a spare. Also, these two holes up here are for a GoPro mount that they do sell. So it is nice if you want to put a GoPro on there. Now, as I mentioned before, the difference between them is the motors. These are 2306 Pulsars, and then on the sport version, we have the Emax Eco you're probably familiar with, which are the 2207, and these are also 1700 kV. Keep in mind, they do also offer these in 4S if you are not using 6S, so that is also nice. The stack on the inside is the Emax Mini Magnum 3, which is very solid. I have absolutely no issues, and unless I smash it, no metal pull, but it comes with a couple UARTs. Everything's all set up. It has a very loud buzzer in there, which is quite nice. The frame is pretty good overall. I'm not a huge fan, but it is definitely very functional. You can see we do not have a cutout for the bearing, which is it's a good and bad thing. It's good because it keeps all the dirt and everything out, but it's bad because if you want to take the bell off to clean it, you have to remove the motor and then unscrew the set screw under there. But it's not a huge deal. The arms are all individual. You can't really tell, but they do sort of sandwich two together, and you have 4 countersunk screws which go into press nuts on the other side. And it's pretty, I do have some wiggle, but it's not going to be a huge problem. And then you do have a little battery pad here with an included Emax strap. Obviously XT60 out the back. Now we move on to the VTX, which is the last little stack. You can see it's sort of that half board, and it's probably my least favorite part of the quad. It's just a little MMCX VTX. I don't know if you can see it better on this one with the front blown out. You can see it does have an LED display, which you're supposed to be able to see through this sort of clear panel in the back. And now this does have smart audio, so it's quite nice to be in there. However, it does come locked, so if you set it to, say, I believe Raceband 3 is a locked channel, it'll just output nothing. So you might be confused by that, so you have to go and press the button on the VTX, plug it in, and then it'll become unlocked. And the signal was pretty good overall, once again, using the little included Emax antenna and my clear view. I had no problems. It's not, I'd say, as good as a TBS VTX, but for racing, I'd say it's perfectly fine, and especially at this price point, it is more than adequate. Speaking of price point, the Pro, or the Sport model here on the left comes in at $190, and the Pro comes in at $230, give or take sales, and prices fluctuate. But that is a very, very good price for these two, and it's a lot of people were considering when I originally got this and showed it to people at races, instead of having to maintain their fleet and build all these quads that they have issues with and blah, 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 it's a lot easier to just buy like 5 of these and that's your fleet, and they're all identical, they're all set up, and it's easy to swap parts in between, which I definitely think there is some merit to that. And now, would I consider this a competing top racing quad between them? And now, in terms of performance between them, I'd actually say they perform almost identical. I do prefer 2207 over 2306, so I might actually like the Sport version better. The Pulsar and the Pro version just has the added benefit of the LEDs, if that's a big thing for you. If not, I'd say the Sport version is probably better off. But in terms of being able to compete with this, obviously 1700 kV is a little bit lower than I use. I typically use anywhere from 1800 to 1900 kV uncapped for my 6S quads. However, when it comes to racing, lines are a lot more important than overall speed. So if you get used to this quad and this was your daily driver, I absolutely think you could compete, maybe not at the highest echelon with this quad, but I'd say you could probably make it to top 90% with this thing, and this is going to be more than adequate for the majority of people who fly this. There's only a couple people that would probably be slightly limited by this, but overall it performs absolutely fantastic. So I have this quad here. Let me put the antenna on, and then we'll just go ahead and get a weight without the props here. So this guy is weighing in at about 271 grams. So with their props, these props weigh about 4.5 grams. We're looking at about 290, 295 grams all up weight, or dry weight without the battery, obviously. And the strap is on there. So that is not bad at all. That's actually lighter than my racers. We are definitely saving some weight in the 20x20 stack, as well as this light molded canopy. And the frame overall is pretty nice. With the single arm sandwich design, that should be very, very easy to replace, and they sell all replacement parts for this on their site. So yeah, that's pretty much going to do it for my review of the Emax Hawk Sport and the Emax Hawk Pro. Definitely not without their issues. I'm not a huge fan of the canopy or the camera and the VTX, but it's definitely manageable, and for the price, it is very, very enticing. The performance you get out of these for, say, only $190 for the Sport One is pretty crazy to be able to get a pre-built competitive racing quad for that much money. So this definitely has a place. So I'll leave the links down below in the description if you are interested. Thanks for watching. Please subscribe, and I'll see you in the next one.